Welcome to another edition of the College Basketball Net Profit Show. It is Thursday, December the 22nd. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you, ready to break it down. The last show that we have before the Christmas holidays. We will not have a college basketball show tomorrow, just way too small of a card. Obviously, there are no games Saturday, Sunday, Monday, but we will be back with you next Tuesday. Will be our next show after today at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. So that's Tuesday, December 27th. Don't show up Christmas Eve. Don't show up on Monday. We won't be here. And don't show up tomorrow either. We'll be back Tuesday next week on December 27th, 5 p.m. Eastern. That'll be our first show after the Christmas break. Connor, ready to rock here on a Thursday?
Let's rock it.
All right, let's get into it. We'll start with St. Peter's and Maryland. Of course, this is our series of marquee games that we've isolated on the slate for tonight. We've got Maryland 23-point home favorites here, 132 being the total in this game. Maryland, obviously, in one of these spots where they have the potential to absolutely Peters. I don't think there's much doubt there, but you are talking about a big number in a situation where these home courts all week long have been a little bit overvalued because of the lack of an atmosphere. So you do have to be careful a little bit. That being said, you've got Maryland in kind of one of these, whatever you want to call it, a circle the wagons game, if you will. I mean, they're off an embarrassing 27-point loss at home to UCLA, and you've got to think they're going to want to maybe take it out, their frustrations on somebody. Could they be able to do that against St. Peter's? Possibly. St. Peter's on the road has had some ugly efforts. They've lost by 12 to Fairfield, 16 to St. Joe's. They lost to Seton Hall back on November the 12th by 36 points, 80 to 44. So they could be walking into Maryland at the wrong time, wrong place, wrong time, perhaps, for St. Peter's. But I don't want to lay 23 in a situation like this because you've got the home court totally overvalued. You don't know what kind of atmosphere, you don't know what kind of turnout there's going to be for a non-conference opponent 3 days before Christmas. So I'm probably going to stay off, but I guess I'd be a little fearful of betting against Maryland. 3 straight losses, the blowout loss at home to UCLA. They might take out their frustrations here on an outmanned St. Peter's squad. What do you think here, Connor?
Yeah, I want nothing with this game, but this should be a get right with Maryland. Desperately go out, kick some ass before here. They go on the break. St. Peter's can't score. So it's a tough time. I talk about it a lot on these big dogs, unless their defense is really good, which their defense is all right. I really don't want to back them here. Could they hang around? Yeah, but I am off. Way away.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't trust St. Peter's enough. They've been walloped on the road by teams that are probably not quite as good as Maryland, and but at the same time, the home court is, like I say, it's a little bit tenuous to lay big points like this. Look at Michigan State yesterday. Part of the reason I was on Oakland is just it's a lot of points, and look, they were not ready to go out the gate, Michigan State, and they never did sniff a point spread cover against Oakland. These bigger home favorites right before the holidays. I mean, better beware. Better beware is what I say to that. Shout out in the chat, Raw Dog. We've got a new member. We've got Preston. We got Fat Wally in the house. Thank you very much, Fat Wally. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you too. You've obviously gone through a lot the last couple of years. We hope you're doing well and enjoying the holiday season. Rocco Rogers, Cashville Rican, everybody in the chat. This is our Christmas show, if you will. Final show before the Christmas break. So get in here. Let's see if we can make a few more dollars here on the College Hoops board before the holidays arrive. All right, next up on the slate, Western Kentucky and South Carolina. Western Kentucky, 2.5-point road favorites, 133 the total. I'm kind of leaning South Carolina here. I just because maybe it's a sour taste in my mouth from Western Kentucky's performance on the road at Louisville, but I can't get over that performance. I mean, they got wiped out 94-83 by Louisville. They give up 94 points to an awful team with no guard play, very weak offensive team. They let Louisville shoot 31 of 57 against them. Not exactly the team I trust laying points on the road. And you actually look, 0-3 they are ATS their last 3 games. Last time they were road favorites, as I mentioned, they lost outright to Louisville. They were 8.5-point road favorites against Austin Peay. They hung on for dear life with a 1-point win. It's not like Western Kentucky has been convincing here away from home. South Carolina, they've definitely had their share of struggles for sure, but on the home floor, they've gotten better performances out of this group. They've actually won and covered all 3 home games this year. Presbyterian, South Carolina Upstate, and then Clemson, the first home game of the year, 3.5-point home dogs. They beat Clemson 60-58. Clemson's not a bad team. Clemson's a solid team. And South Carolina, I think here, they're getting, first of all, Western Kentucky's getting a little too much respect because I don't think this team, so far from what I've seen, is as good as we've seen in the last couple of seasons. I think South Carolina may be not getting enough respect for the way they've played at home this season. And with Western Kentucky showing more than enough warts and chinks in the armor away from home, I think I might look at the home dog here, South Carolina plus 2.5. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think this could be South Carolina. You mentioned nobody probably in the stands here for this one. Western Kentucky to me is the better basketball team, but I don't want to lay 2.5 right now. Not on the road. I thought this game was ugly. Take the dog here in South Carolina or pass, but I don't even want them. They struggle to score, and they haven't been great defensively. But you mentioned they haven't really played. The Clemson win is good. But we start looking at those games, the first games of the year, they just already seem so long ago because we're almost in January. So I lean with them catching the couple points, but I'm not betting it.
All right, next up, we've got Marist and Rider. Riders on the storm. We got Metro Atlantic basketball here. Riders 7-point home favorites, 128 the total in this game. Honestly, like Marist here. I like underdogs in this conference, especially in conference games. I find there's not a boatload of separation between these teams. And I faded Rider the other night, 60-59. They lost to Delaware. Back and forth game, went down to the wire, but Marist, on the other hand, we know Marist for years. They've always had problems scoring, and it's the same again this year. They're really not a great offensive team, but they are not a bad defensive team, and I think that matters here going into this matchup against Rider. In fact, they're the better defensive team. Marist is, they want to grind this game down to a halt, play tight, low-scoring basketball. They're not going to try to let Rider get up and down the court. You look at the series history here. These teams play each other every year, same conference. It's been pretty competitive. I mean, you look at last year, we saw Marist get a 76-67 win, January 23rd, 2021. Last year, Marist beat Rider at Rider on Rider's home floor, 79-67 in a near pick'em. And then in the rematch on Marist's home floor, Rider wins, but only by 4, 79-75 in the rematch. I think it's a lot of points. I think it's a close game. You've got arguably the better defensive team, Marist, catching points. Give me the Red Foxes here. Marist plus 7 for me. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I lean the Red Foxes in this one. Rider's better, and they're at home, but I don't know about this. 7.5. I don't think this should be this number. Some of these teams I thought that would be better. Haven't been playing with Rider. A couple others you mentioned yesterday, Niagara. I thought, it's still time here in conference play, but have kind of slipped off lately. I think the under's a little bit better. Not a whole lot of room here, right around 129, but I think this game's in the 60s. So I'd lean the dog and the under here.
All right, leaning to the dog and the under. Joey Harb, Jefferson C, Starchild. Great to see more. Nasty Nate in the chat. Bill McHugh, thank you very much. Happy holidays to you as well. Shout out everyone in the chat. Hit the like button, 76 live viewers. Appreciate that very much. All right, moving on down the card. We've got Louisville and NC State. NC State 17-point home favorites here, 145.5 the total in this one. I mean, are we at the point now where there's value on Louisville? I don't want to say that yet. I mean, I got to see a little bit more, but they finally did get a point spread cover a couple games ago against Western Kentucky where they won outright. Unfortunately, since then, they've gone 0-2 ATS. They've gone right back into the burn money for their backers department. 61-55 against Florida A&M. They were 18-point favorites. They never even came close. They barely won the damn game outright. And then against Lipscomb in their last game, 75-67. They lose as small home dogs to Lipscomb. And we talked about that game on this show. Isn't it something that Lipscomb is favored on the road against Louisville? Well, they obviously were favored on the road for a reason. They beat Louisville at Louisville here, 75-67. So I don't want Louisville. But again, here we are again, home court with very little crowd atmosphere or punch because we're an exam week and we're close to the holidays. And do you want to lay 17.5? Do you want to lay this many with NC State? We don't have too many examples of them laying in the 20s. the times they did, they beat William and Mary by 21. They were 22-point favorites against Coppin, right around the number. They were 25-point favorites against Elon at home. They only won by 11. You're laying a big number here in a spot where it could be a sleepy environment for the home team, as we've said ad nauseum with all of these games. But there's no way I could make a case for Louisville, a strong, serious case, that is. You want to throw a couple bucks at it, be my guest, because you think the numbers caught up. But they had a chance to show me they could build on a Western Kentucky win that, hey, maybe it's something that can light a spark for Louisville. And what did they do? They turned around. They nearly lost to a very weak Florida A&M team at home as 18-point favorites, and then they lose to Lipscomb. So much for that Western Kentucky game being the start of a turnaround. So I have no interest in Louisville. It's whether you want to lay this many with NC State, and I don't. What do you think here, C-Mac?
I don't either. There's some games, right now, just don't get involved until the new year starts. I think this is one, and I'd look to, because Louisville's defense has been so bad this year. Bad turnovers, bad shooting team. It's the other team to points. And, I look at NC State, I'm like, maybe their team total 82.5, which they might get there, but that's a ton. So I was going to maybe look that route if you don't want to lay the number. But, yeah, I'm off here.
All right, let's go to the Big East here. Butler and Creighton in action here. Creighton 7.5, 8-point favorites here. 141 the total in this game. Certainly, it's been a wild ride to begin the season for the Creighton Blue Jays. 6-6, great wins, horrible losses, a little bit of everything essentially on their resume so far. They beat Arkansas, hung tough with Arizona. Great performance, albeit in a loss to the Wildcats. Pretty admirable effort at Texas. They lose by 5. And then the bottom fell out. They lost to Nebraska, BYU, Arizona State, Marquette the last game. So they've struggled. They've lost 6 in a row. Feels like they've lost a little bit of their confidence. But the good news for the Creighton Blue Jays is part of the reason why this team has struggled so much of late is the absence of Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's missed the last 3 games due to illness, but he will return for the Blue Jays tonight. You talk about someone that matters. He matters a lot at both ends of the floor, in the paint for the Creighton Blue Jays. And you can tell they look a little lost at times without him. So having him back is certainly significant for the Creighton Blue Jays going into this game. Butler does have some injuries as well with DJ Hughes, Miles Tate, both banged up, questionable for this game. I think it's a bounce back spot thing for Creighton. The question is, do you want to lay 7.5, 8? With them against Butler. Butler got drubbed by UConn 68-46 in their last game at home. Butler actually beat Creighton 72-55 last year at home. And then here in Creighton, it was a 2-point game. So Butler was 2-0 ATS last year against Creighton. That being said, I prefer them here than take the points with Butler. I think they are ready, I think, for a much better performance, a much better in all facets, offensively, defensively. They should be with Kalkbrenner back on the floor. I'd lean to the favorite. It's a big number, which is why I'm going to keep it a small bet, but I do prefer the Creighton side here. What do you think, Conor? Butler, Creighton?
Yeah, he's back off being, sick, and that's what he means a ton. So he's the key. It's just, do I want to bet this game? Not really. Do I think they cover? Yeah, they need a good bounce back before the break, and they probably get it here. You mentioned Butler dealing with those injuries are big for them. We saw them just get ripped by UConn over the weekend. It is a lot of points. Creighton needs one, though, desperately bad, a win here. So in the end, I'm off. I'd still lean under. I know Kalkbrenner's back. Maybe that's a little more points. But when these teams get together, games stay under.
We'll lean into the under here for a Conor in Butler and Creighton. All right, another marquee game tonight, Illinois and Missouri. This is an annual rivalry. These teams play each other every year. Even though Illinois is in the Big Ten and Missouri's in the SEC, they play each other every single season. Once again, that's the case here. We've got Illinois 6.5-point favorites. Neutral floor, by the way. This is at the home of the St. Louis Blues, the hockey team. The Missouri Valley tournament every year is in this building as well here in St. Louis. Look, Illinois is the better team. There's no question. Do you want to lay 6.5? That is the bigger question. I got concerns about Missouri, though, because I think probably next to Kansas, this is the next best team they've played this year, Missouri. And that Kansas game, they got absolutely waxed, 95-67. They weren't even competitive in that game. And there's no doubt Illinois is the next best team in line after Kansas that Missouri has faced this year. So this is a step up in class for Missouri. So I actually lean to Illinois. I mean, I don't trust Missouri enough, against quality competition based on what I've seen. And let's keep in mind, last year it was 88-63 beat down for Illinois, winning by 25 against Missouri last year when these teams met. And look, Illinois had some losses, Coburn, Corbello from last year's team, but they really did a nice job. Like I said, Brad Underwood hitting the transfer portal, bringing in players to replace who they lost. And I still think this is a quality basketball team. They struggled mightily with Penn State and lost that game. And of course, against the last opponent they played, they were kind of sleepwalking, Alabama A&M, but they won by 21. So they haven't been at their absolute best. And of course, they had the road loss against Maryland. But I just have that Kansas game in my mind where Missouri's defense got absolutely gutted and ripped apart, and they gave up 95 points and 35 of 61 shooting. And, Illinois could do similar damage to Missouri here. I prefer the over, honestly, if I were to bet something in this game. I think the over is the better bet. I think Illinois could score at will against this Missouri defense. But at the same point in time, Missouri, you look at what they've got offensively. They've got Demoy Hodge. They've got Brown. They've got some talent there as well. DeAndre Golston. They're a decent enough offensive team. And, at times we have seen Illinois here the last couple games, the Penn State game, the Texas game. Defense has come unglued, not terrible, but it's not been nearly as efficient at the defensive end of the floor. So total is high. It's in the 150s, but I think it could get there up and over the total here with Illinois and Missouri. Connor, what do you think here? Illini Tigers.
Yeah, talking about the total, it might get there. That last game, obviously slower for UCF, 95 to Kansas, but all these other games, I don't think they play good defense. You mentioned the schedule that they have. They can score a little bit. I think instead of laying it here with Illinois, the only thing is the neutral court. I always look to everything, the sight lines, all that shit, towards unders. But unless Missouri all of a sudden get a place of defense, I'd look at Illinois' team total over 78.5 or 79.5. I think they can get to 80 tonight. That's where I'd be.
All right, maybe look toward more the team total over for Connor Mack here with Illinois and Missouri. 103 live viewers here. College Basketball Net Profit. Hit the like button. We appreciate that very much. We got 3 more games to go with the marquee games. That will give out some games we didn't talk about that we like from a betting standpoint, and then Q&A, best bets after that. Weber State and BYU. We've got BYU 13-point home favorites. 143 is the total in this one. I tell you what, Weber State all of a sudden, turning things around at least somewhat here. It's obviously a team that went through some struggles early in the season. They're still only 5-7, from a straight up perspective this year. But I said against Cal Poly, out of nowhere, they beat down a pretty decent Cal Poly team, 74-45. And I said, I'm going to take them again against Utah State because maybe it's a buy sign on Weber State. And I thought they'd hang. I thought they'd compete with Utah State. I didn't think they'd win. What a performance. I mean, 17-point dogs. They shock Utah State 75-72 in that game. They got 4 players in double figures, 49% shooting, 50% from three-point range, and they did a hell of a job defensively against a very balanced Utah State squad. So they are turning a corner, Weber State. They are becoming a team that, hey, maybe undervalued after a rocky start. They flipped the switch. They're playing better basketball, and maybe it's going to take the betting markets a good amount of time for them to catch up to how much improved Weber State is. And, last year they lost by 18 to BYU, but the year before they only lost by 8 to them. This is usually an annual matchup, these two teams, even though they're in different conferences. Mountain West for BYU, and, of course, the Big Sky for their opponent, Weber State. But I think Weber State might be getting, like I said, why not take a shot with them again here? They're clearly undervalued at the moment. After a brutal start, they've now won 2 in a row outright as big underdogs. Why not take a shot with them here again and ride the momentum? And that's what I'm going to do. Weber State plus 13. I think I'm going to bet it over the total as well, C-Mac. The total's already gone up 141 to 143. And we've seen 4 straight overs head-to-head with
Yeah.
BYU, Weber State, 113, 103, 91, 61, 87, 79, 89, 71. I mean, all of these games between these teams have flown over the total, and this is by far the lowest total or second lowest total. You know, you had 158.5, 136.5, 144, and 151 with the previous game totals head-to-head with these teams. This total is only at 143. So I think it gets up and over here. What do you think, Connor?
That's what I looked at when I looked at this last night, this morning. I thought it was a little low. BYU trending to the over, playing a little quick, and shooting a lot better as of late. And on the flip, you already mentioned at the top how well Weber the last few. You know, that's the only thing. Can that continue? The hot shooting from them. I mean, if that's the way, and a little bit up and down because the tempo, I think this gets over there. And yeah, Weber's hot. I could see BYU covering it. They played a little bit over their head, I thought, the last couple of weeks with dealing with some of the injuries that they've had. So I like the over a little bit more. I lean to Weber in the points here as the side.
Now, the biggest concern here, too, is do they have another big effort left in them? They were at Cal Poly, at Utah State. Now you're on the road for the third straight game. You run out of gas here a little bit if you're Weber. That does concern me a little bit. But I've cashed with them, the last game, and I'm see if I can roll back. And I like the over here as well. We're both in agreement there. Should see some points. All right, Loyola Chicago versus Stanford. We've got Stanford 5.5, 6-point favorites, 125 the total in this game. This one's interesting here. I think Loyola Chicago is the side that I'd be interested in this game. They're starting to play some better basketball. I just don't trust Stanford, when they're laying any kind of points. Really, I don't. And you look at it, their wins this year coming against it was Cal Poly, FSU on a neutral court, Florida State, and then Green Bay, who are not very good at all. Loyola Chicago, like I said, they've won 4 of their last 5. Okay, the schedule hasn't been the toughest, but they did have a nice neutral court victory, dominant victory over Clemson, 76-58. I took the Ramblers in that game. This is still a team that, for the most part, brings pretty solid defensive acumen to the table. They're a half-court defensive-minded team, and they haven't been nearly as good defensively early in the season, but starting to show signs of getting it going again. Defensively going into this game, which should help by far. What I think is going to be good for Loyola here going into this game is the fact that, like I said, their defense is returning. They're an excellent defensive rebounding team. Stanford, not so much on the offensive glass, so there could be a little bit of an advantage there in favor of the Ramblers. Neither team has been consistent this year. But I think getting 5.5, 6 with a Loyola Chicago team that's gradually starting to put better performances, more consistency together is the way I would go here, taking the underdog in the Loyola Chicago side. And Drew Valentine, of course, played his college basketball at Michigan State. Now his second year as the head coach, saying no vacation. You get to experience the West Coast, but we're going out here with a purpose, he says. We're coming here to win basketball games. And from a resume standpoint, like if there comes a time later in the season where Loyola Chicago is knocking on the door of making a case to be an at-large NCAA tournament team, it will go a long way to furthering and cementing your case as an at-large if you're able to get victories on the road against teams like this, power conference teams like a Stanford. So I think this is an important game for Loyola. They're getting into better form. They're rounding into better form the last 4 or 5 games. I like them here getting a 5.5, 6 as an underdog tonight against Stanford. What do you think here, Conor? Loyola Chicago and Stanford.
Yeah, Loyola looking a little bit better. I faded them early in the year. You mentioned their defense has been it, and got to hit some shots. Stanford's defense, on the flip side, is very good. But I don't want to trust Stanford laying points. Not 6 here. I just think it's too much. They turn the ball over. But big for tonight, pressure here on Stanford. They're a team, bad with turnovers, not highly ranked up there. I mean, the game, I guess, is close to Stanford, a little bit here, this neutral site game. But you mentioned Loyola's heading out there. I think they can keep this game close. Obviously, by this total, it's low. So I think you take the points here, pass.
All right, I like it too. Loyola Chicago getting the points. All right, the final game of this of the marquee games, I should say, of this show. Your backyard down the street here, Thomas and Mack Center, Southern Miss and UNLV. We've got UNLV 8.5-point favorites, 144.5 being the total in this game. Something's got to give here. You've got obviously 10-1 UNLV, 11-1 Southern Miss. You can quibble about how tough the schedule has been for both teams, really. But I like the points here with Southern Miss, man. They are some kind of defensive team, Southern Miss. They've been excellent in terms of shutting down. They're not even giving up 60 points per game. Now, again, you can quibble about the strength of schedule. No doubt. It's not like Southern Miss has played a ton of great teams. But still, when you're giving up less than 60 points per game, you're still playing some serious defense. You're D'ing up. You're making it difficult. You're contesting shots. And they're definitely doing a great job, Southern Miss, of that. No question about that. And I think that's significant. They shut down the three-point line, which is good against UNLV because UNLV can stroke it from the perimeter sometimes. And I think the big thing in this matchup, too, is you've got a UNLV team that's been very good this year in a lot of areas. They've got inside-outside scoring. The defense is pretty solid. They've not been terrific on the glass, and especially the defensive glass. And you've got a 73rd ranked offensive rebounding team in the country in Southern Miss. So, is Southern Miss going to be able to, if they miss their initial shot, get those second and third looks? Based on the numbers, the answer is yes, because they're a very good offensive rebounding team. UNLV a little shaky, getting the rebound after getting the initial stop with the defensive rebounding. So keep that in mind. And UNLV, of course, they ended up losing as favorites to San Francisco. So you do get them off a loss. I'm sure they'll be looking to bounce back, but they not only have to win this game, they've got to win by damn near double digits against a team that just doesn't give you anything. A team that just does not give up points easily with the Golden Eagles. So I'm on the road dog here, Southern Miss plus the points. Conor Mack, what do you think here? Southern Miss, UNLV.
I think you lean that way. It's shocking because this line's moving the other way. I think UNLV is going to bounce back. You got to win by 9 now. Here, Harkless is good. You mentioned UNLV is not very big and doesn't rebound it well. Gilbert, Rodriguez have all been good. All three of those guys right around 13 or higher points scored. Southern Miss mentioned hasn't really beat any. They did beat Vandy early on in the year. Their schedule has been soft. They shot the three decent. This could be, if the game's tight, they don't shoot free throws well, which will be interesting. I just think it's too many in the end. I haven't bet Southern Miss. And let's touch on the total. UNLV under. You mentioned both defenses have been good. Tempos are both, top 100 inside of there. So does this go over, or do we get into more, of a slower game? It stays under, and that's why I'm off the total. I think it could go either way.
All right, so we'll see how that does with the total. I lean under, honestly. I'm not looking to bet any Southern Miss game over the total, but they are betting this one over, and I definitely like the road underdog here with Southern Miss.
UNLV trending over, though, lately after a bunch of unders.
They definitely are, so something's got to give here in this one. Even Southern Miss has gone over in 4 straight as well, but I think they're going to have the chance here to slow things down quite a bit. Keep in mind, these games where they put up 80s and 90s, they're not that good offensively, Southern Miss. They're still going to be a team that wins games with defense. I mean, that's Lamar twice and McNeese State.
Yeah,
I mean, they are some of the worst teams and worst defensive teams in college basketball right now. So I think it's inflated this total a little bit, some of these recent results for Southern Miss. It wouldn't surprise me to see this be a little bit lower scoring, even if the betting markets don't agree.
Real quick, and the Thomas and Mack, it will not be packed.
No. That is a guarantee.
It should be all right, but it won't be.
Of all the things I can say about home courts that will not be a true home advantage for the team, you can say that for sure about UNLV, but you could say that for UNLV for the last 5 to 10 years. Hell, you could say that going back to the Jerry Tarkanian era. It's the last time they packed the place for UNLV basketball. So definitely they've had a hard time drawing out the fan support, especially the lean years of UNLV basketball, the last few. All right, great stuff. That is the marquee games. 133 live viewers. Hit the like button. Conor Mack, we'll start with you. Any games we have not talked about yet that you're eyeing tonight?
Yeah, I took this earlier. I don't think UAB is very good, but I love how the way Charlotte's play defense all year long. I like the 11 with them. I just think it's too many, and I think they could keep this game within the number. I have a lean. I bet this total's so low, but what we've seen is, and we know UTSA can't, scores, plays no defense, but North Texas is back to the strangle. They're healthy, and their games are back to 65-48. So even at 123.5, in that game, it is under pass. And last, I'm just looking at a few. George Washington, I think, is getting a big number, 10.5, right around there. I kind of lean in that game as well.
All right, there we go. A few thoughts there. Is that true? Isaiah Scurry in our chat, my uncle Moses Scurry, was on the 1990 UNLV team. Yeah, one of the great Jerry Tarkanian era teams. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Right on. Yeah, he's on that team.
Good stuff. I mean, those were fun teams, man. Wow, they had some excellent team. Greg Anthony was on those teams as well back in the
Larry
day.
Johnson, Ogman.
Yep. Oh man, great.
Anderson Hunt, stroking it.
Yep. Great teams, great golden era of UNLV basketball, and that's when UNLV was on front page news back in Las Vegas in that era. Of course, I mean they're contended for national championships multiple seasons there. When Tark was on the sidelines. Yeah, great era for UNLV basketball for sure. Okay, my games that I like that we haven't talked about yet here on the show. Let me just bring them up on the screen here. Okay, here we go. I mentioned Marist already. I like Northern Illinois, Indiana State over the total. I think that gets there. I'm in agreement with Conor's look to Charlotte. I mean, Charlotte's got the kind of defense can frustrate one of those full court pressure up and down teams like UAB. UAB is just electrifying offensively, but Charlotte's got the kind of defensive ability to maybe keep them under wraps, keep that game closer than you would think. So I don't mind the look on Charlotte there as well. I'm on Portland State and the over against Cal Baptist. Portland State's faced a tough schedule. They've faced some really good teams in some of these non-conference tournaments. I think it's toughened them up for what's ahead for them. I think they're now undervalued. I mean, they played Gonzaga. They played a bunch of really good teams, Portland State. So I think now they get to step down in class, and now you get some point spread value on them because of their struggles against better competition. So I like Portland State plus the points, and I like the over as well against Cal Baptist in one of the late games tonight. And then the rest of the games are there's some non-added board games I like. I like Pepperdine plus the points and the over against Hawaii. That's part of the Diamond Head Classic. They always have it every year around Christmas time at the Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu. It's actually a true home game for Hawaii. That's where they play their home games. But I think Pepperdine is the side I'd look at there in that one. I think they just have a little bit more athleticism, a little more offensive firepower than Hawaii. They can kind of dictate their pace, which is obviously to push the ball. So I like Pepperdine plus the points, plus 4.5, and I like over 141 there with that game, Pepperdine, Hawaii. They've got the Sun Bowl Invitational in El Paso. New Mexico State, I'd leaned a little bit to them against A&T, but I didn't bet it. Kent State, UTEP, I took +7 with UTEP. As much as I was on Kent State last night, that's a really good team. This is a true home game for UTEP, and UTEP's not bad defensively. Maybe can keep this pretty good Kent State offensive team under wraps for a bit. So I like UTEP a little bit. Mining for profits tonight. Get that axe out with UTEP. And then in the added board, I've got a couple overs. That's it. Queens and Fairleigh Dickinson. I bet that one over 154. And Morgan State, Arizona. I got 159.5 with the over. It's gone up to 160s now, but I still think there's a lot of points, as you'd expect with Arizona, and they're facing an outmanned Morgan State team. So there you go. Those are the looks for me on the card tonight. So we'll open it up for Q&A, whatever anybody has for us. I think we've gone through most of the games, to be quite honest. Yeah, we talked about Western Kentucky. I like the South Carolina side in that game. I'm not laying points on the road with the Hilltoppers. Star Child, I think I might like Harvard tonight, plus 21.5. And I'll tell you what, Kansas is like NC State. Kansas is like, all of these teams that are bigger favorites tonight at home, double-digit variety. I don't want to lay the points with them in this spot. Close to Christmas, empty building. I don't think Fog Allen is going to be as raucous as it normally would be. The question is, can Harvard hang in there? I'd probably lean to Harvard getting 21.5 there. Connor, did you have anything there?
It's just the schedule's so tough for Harvard. They cover though. I'd lean that way. I'm not going to get involved though. I don't think.
They are. I mean, they're 4-1 straight up on the road this year. But you're right; it's been a grueling schedule for them. They have played a bunch of road games. They did beat Irvine, just 2 days ago. But they got to go from Cal Irvine all the way to Fog Allen, Lawrence, Kansas, after beating Irvine 62-57 as 10-point dogs. So you just worry they run out of gas a little bit. And we did see Kansas just destroy Indiana. Kansas beat Indiana by 22 points. I mean, they could beat Harvard by that many points for sure, if they're dialed in. So that becomes the concern. Yeah, I lean UTSA a little bit, Rocco Rogers. It's more so I don't necessarily love laying that many points with North Texas 13 on the road in an in-state game like that. So, but UTSA is not very good. That would be my one concern. But I think I'd lean to them with the points. It feels like an inflated number. And Yale minus 13 against Monmouth. I'm all about, especially early in the season, I've really been on the fade Monmouth train of thought, no question about that. And they are still struggling, no doubt. But is Yale the kind of team that's going to go on the road and beat them down? That's the question. They've had some games where they've kind of slept-walked on the road. The Stonehill game, they were 15.5-point road favorites. They only won by 5. Don't get me wrong, Jake, Yale or nothing. I don't want any part of Monmouth.
That's how I feel.
I don't want to lay 13.
I don't think I bet it, but I'd lay it with Yale there. It's Monmouth.
Yeah. Best dog to win by 10 points. Best dog to win by 10 points. I mean, best dog to win, not only win, but win outright. Is that what you're asking here, Cheshire Cat? Oh, boy. Let me see. I think Marist is really live against Ryder. Charlotte, I think you can give, UAB a tougher game. Weber State's Loyola Chicago. I think Loyola Chicago is that one for sure. That they not only can they win the game outright, but like if they win by like 8 or 10 and they really lock down Stanford, it wouldn't shock me.
Yep, that's what I was going to say. And you can say that's going to be my best bet.
There you go. Exactly.
So there you go.
So, lots to like though, and it's not a bad card actually for the final show for us right before Christmas. So we do have some good opportunities. We thank everybody for sending in your questions, for tuning in. For 146 live viewers, hit the like button. Become a Pub Sports Radio YouTube member to $44.99 a month. Doesn't cost you barely anything, 18 cents a day. You get all kinds of perks, incentives to being a Pub Sports Radio member. So make sure you get involved with that as well. We will be back, Connor and I, with best bets to wrap up the show and wrap up the net profit season prior to the Christmas break. Of course, we'll be back next Tuesday. Best bets coming up right after we hear from Manscaped and Southtown 101. All right, Southtown 101. When you're in San Antonio, Texas, stop in. Great food, drinks, live music, DJs, karaoke, Southtown 101 and manscaped.com. 20% off, free shipping with your purchase as well using the promo code PUBSPORTS. All right, best bets to wrap it up here for this Thursday show and the final net profit show before the Christmas break. Again, we're not here tomorrow. We're off Saturday. Obviously, it's Christmas Eve. There's no college games on Saturday for college basketball. Christmas Day. Obviously, we don't have shows on Sundays. Monday, we'll be off on the 26th, and we will be back on the 27th, next Tuesday, with the next college basketball net profit show at 5 p.m. Eastern. We will be back with the Saturday edition, the Pub Hub show, on December 31st, New Year's Eve. We will have a Saturday morning college basketball Pub Hub show on New Year's Eve. We do have a huge slate of college basketball New Year's Eve on that Saturday. So, Cabby, me and Connor Mack will be here with you for that. All right, best bets. Connor Mack, what do you like?
I mentioned Loyola Chicago +6, 5.5. I think they do it. I'm going to add on this over though. BYU's just been banked to the over. I got to ride it. Weber, BYU over 142.
That's probably a good total as well. I like both. Weber State, BYU over, and also looking at the Loyola Chicago Ramblers +6 against Stanford. Best bets for Conor Mack. I'm going to go with, you know what? I'm also going to use Loyola Chicago +6 against Stanford, and I'll go with another total, but I'm going to go with Illinois, Missouri over 153. Actually, no, we'll get better than that. 152.5 at DraftKings right now with the total in that game. So over 152.5, Illinois, Missouri, and Loyola Chicago +6 against Stanford. Those will be my two best bets. We split with the best bets yesterday.
Yep.
St. John's just disappointing in the second half. They fall
Again.
to Villanova again.
Yeah, they can't do it.
They can't do it. They just can't beat that team. And bad second half. Offensively, they went cold. Defense unraveled. But we did get the other bet to come through. Notre Dame, Florida State went over the total. That was the other best bet. So 1-1 with the best bets. Hopefully we got a 2-0 sweep here tonight. Loyola Chicago plus the points. Illinois, Missouri over 152.5. Oh, Wichita State. I never lay 11.5 with Wichita State. Not good enough offensively to trust them catching points. In fact, I'd lean Texas Southern, but at the same time, I don't think Texas Southern's nearly as good as they've been in recent seasons. So I'm off the game. I'd lean Texas Southern. Just the question there from Ian Jackson.
Off.
And Connor passing on that one. There you go. Merry Christmas to Ron Walsek, Cheshire Cat, everybody in the chat. We appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. The show is, this is our last show before Christmas, but we'll be back in full force starting next Tuesday. And then once we get into the new year, we won't be taking any days off. We'll be on Monday to Friday and the Saturday show because there'll be games every day. There won't be these days where there's only 2 or 3 games. So we'll be on every single day pretty much starting next Tuesday, Monday through Saturday, right here on the College Basketball Net Profit, Monday to Friday, Pub Hub, Saturday mornings.
Everyone, thank you for joining us. We don't see, like Ian said, Merry Christmas stuff, but Thursday Night Football, yes. I'll be back in just a few hours. Some people mentioned that in the chat. I do not have a bet pregame on it, but I will have a few props, and we'll be betting live. And that's it. Come check us out. Get it.
Yep. Check it out Thursday night. Conor Mack hosting Thursday Night Football, live bet stream. Jacksonville Jaguars, New York Jets. Everybody couldn't wait to make their jokes before the season. What a bunch of morons, the NFL and Amazon Prime. The Jaguars and Jets on Thursday, December 22nd. What a shit game. And it's turning out to be a huge game. Both teams in the playoff mix. So the jokes on people that made fun of them, everybody for that. It's turned out to be a very important game. So one worth checking out on the bet stream tonight here on Pub Sports Radio for sure. For what it's worth, I lean Jacksonville, but I have Jacksonville and some teasers at +8.5. I think it's a little safer to tease them up because I can see the Jets winning by like 3 or 4 tonight. I think it'll be a competitive game. So that's the way I see it. Probably a good game to bet in game too as well. So make sure you tune in to Connor's bet stream tonight for Thursday Night Football right here on Pub Sports Radio. For Conor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Thursday night. Merry Christmas. We love you all. It's a great family thing we've got going on here at Pub Sports Radio. Merry Christmas. Hope you get what you want under the tree on the Christmas morning. And we'll see you next Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. And we'll be back once again with the College Basketball Net Profit Show right here on Pub Sports Radio.